Good morning. We are now live on Facebook and YouTube. Morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. I see some of you have already started commenting in the comments and the chat, so please continue. Just pose there your comments and your greetings. I'd love to hear you with us personally and to welcome you personally to the discussion. In a moment, we're going to go through the list of people that have shared their greetings, so keep them coming. Okay, hello everyone. Keep on sharing. Let's go through the names now. To welcome you personally to all those who've shared. Hello, Shirley Feldman and Tracy Mindel. Good morning, Felicia James. Good morning, Arnold Orkin. Boker Tov. Norman Stein. Boker Tov. David Ginsburg. Thanks for joining us. On YouTube, we have Manfred Kalmek and Shirley Smith. Good morning, David Seif. Stephen Herr. Yes, we'll learn of your mother, Esther Babmoshe. Dennis Solomons. Murad Dworkin, thank you very much. Ever Walpert, Dawn Olovitz, Ian Clemenson. Wonderful to have you all online with us right now. We're just going to wait a minute or so to allow for others to log on, and then we're going to get going. Hello, Alin Yudulovitz and Larry Cohen. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us here. Denise Kraus, good morning. Okay, just a few more moments. Good morning, Michael Stein. Alin Yudulovitz, thank you. Good morning. Okay, great. Let's get going. So as you saw, my topic for today is Mars and Venus. Can they live together? So obviously, you can guess what we're referring to. And that is the topic of relationships and marriage. Men are for Mars, women are for Venus. Can the two live side by side together? We know that when Adam was created, together with Chava, Adam and Eve, in Gan Eden, we know that they were created in such a way where it was Ezer Kenegdo. What does Ezer Kenegdo mean? That Chava was created opposite to Adam. Ezer Kenegdo. On the one hand, it was Ezer. On the one hand, she was going to be a help to him. On the other hand, Kenegdo, she was opposite him. God intentionally designed it in such a way that husband and wife should be opposites. Yet they work hand in hand. Yet they live side by side with each other. It's one of those miracles. Boker Tov, Robert Levy. It's one of those miracles. On the one hand, they're so different. On the one hand, it's Kenegdo, they're opposite each other. On the other hand, it's Ezer. It's an assistance. It helps. That's the paradox of marriage. It's the irony of marriage, that we may be so different, and yet that enables us, not only despite our differences, but because of our differences, we come side by side and are able to live with each other and near each other, together with each other. And so today we're going to discuss a little bit about this topic of how it's possible to have Ezer Kenegdo. How can you have someone who's opposite you, but together with you? How can you have someone who's so different to you, but side by side with you? That's going to be the conversation of today. I want to welcome you all here this morning. To those who have joined us, we have over 30 participants online right now with us. So thank you for joining, and thank you for being part of this. And I also want to dedicate our learning of today to the Refuah Shalema of two people, Shmuel ben Itamira and Liron ben Sarit. May they both have a speedy recovery, among others who need a refuah during this time. So how do we accomplish that? So I think if we look at this week's portion, we've got a bit of insight into that discussion. What happens in this week's portion is actually a double parsha. For those who aren't aware, it's going to be a combination of Chukas and Balak. It's a combination of two parshiot coming together, Chukas and Balak. Maybe it's very relevant to two people coming together, Mars and Venus. So we got Chukas and Balak. But nonetheless, in the parsha of Balak, we talk about Moab and the king of Moab being Balak. Balak was a king of Moab. And he reaches out to the prophet called Bilam. Why does he reach out to Bilam? Because he's scared. He's scared of the Jewish people who are now approaching Moab. And he says to Bilam, I need your help. I want to annihilate the Jewish people. And I know that you are a prophet. In the same way the Jewish people accomplish amazing things through prayer, through davening, I want you to curse them through prayer and davening too. And so Balak, the king of Moab, reaches out to Bilam, the prophet of Midian, and invites him to come to Moab to assist in the annihilation of the Jewish people. Sounds like one of our typical stories from Jewish history. It sounds like a story that we're all familiar with. But one thing the commentaries point out for us, which is not said clearly in the narrative of the Torah story. What does it say? It says that Midian and Moab sonim ze et ze. That Moab and Midian are actually enemies with each other. Hello, Feiga. Just because, we sort of associate all the nations together, whether it's the Amori or the Canaani or the Hitti or the Moabi it's not so simple. We know today how even in the world of today or in the Middle East, it's not so simple. Not all nations are friends with each other. And we are told that Moab and Midian are enemies. Sonim ze et ze, they hate each other. So then why are they coming together? Why is Balak, king of Moab, reaching out to Bilam if the two nations of Moab and Midian are actually enemies? If they're enemies, they shouldn't be coming near each other. What's that all about? So the Talmud teaches us something very interesting, and Rashi quotes it as well on the Chumash. What does the Talmud say? The Talmud says that they had a common goal. The common goal was to destroy the Jewish people. And when you have a common goal, somehow we put our differences aside, because we all share the common goal that unites us at the top. And yes, Moab and Midian may be enemies, but they're enemies until it comes to a joint effort of annihilating the Jewish people. Then suddenly that difference and the enemies within them falls away. Suddenly they're best friends, and they're able to join forces together and to fight the Jewish people together, because enemies are no longer, they have a joint cause. If they have a joint cause, they're not enemies. They're not opposites. They're able to see eye to eye over that joint cause that unites them and connects them. And so Moab and Midian suddenly came together. They came together to pray against the Jewish people, to use their words of prophecy, of curses, as we know they were unsuccessful to do, but they tried their luck. So we see here a very important rule, that when you have Mars and Venus, when you have two opposites that are so different, how do you connect them? You create a common cause, a common goal. If they have a common goal, they're able to merge together. I know we're talking about good and bad, we're talking about holy and unholy, but we learn from the unholy, we learn from the journey of Moab and Midian, which were enemies of the Jewish people. We're able to learn a fundamental principle that we're able to apply to our marriages and relationships too. And that is creating a common goal. When there's a common goal, our differences fall away. We see also in another area of the Chumash. Where else do we see it? We see it by the plague in Egypt, in Mitzrayim. What happens in Egypt? It comes to the plague of Barad. What does Barad mean? Barad means hail. It comes to the plague of hail. We learn about a fascinating miracle that takes place. The miracle is that the hail wasn't just hail. It was hail with fire inside the hail. There was fire inside the hail. That's what the commentaries teach us. Now, how's that possible? Fire and water, fire and ice are enemies, are opposites. By the way, I think that's where the name of the hotel comes from, Fire and Ice. That's the way Barad, hail was, fire and ice. There was fire within the ice. But they're opposites. Fire either dries up water, dries up the liquid, or the liquid and the ice extinguish the fire, whichever way it is, depending on the variables at the time. And so how's it possible that fire and ice can work together and be part of the curse against the Egyptians? The Makkah, the plague against the Egyptians. And here too the answer is quite clear. That while they fight for themselves, they're enemies. When they worry about themselves, they're different. When fire is worried about the fire and ice is worried about the ice and vice versa, they are enemies and opposites. And they can't work side by side and they can't work together. But the moment there's a common goal, and what's the common goal? The common goal is to come together on behalf of God and punish the Egyptians. That's a common goal. The moment there's a common goal, suddenly fire and ice can live side by side. And not just live side by side, but help one another and be of assistance. Because there's something at the top that's uniting them and connecting them together. There's a common goal of serving God and making and helping Hashem punish the Egyptians. And for that, It combines, connects. So here too, we see the same concept. That two opposites, the moment they understand that they have a common goal, can unite and connect. I want to take a moment here to welcome you all and those who are joining us. Thank God we got close to 35 viewers online with us right now. If you'd like to share your greetings and let us know you're with us, I'd appreciate that. I want to welcome you personally. Or if you have any questions, put them into the comments so that we can address your question personally on the forum. Feel free to do so on either Facebook chat or YouTube. Those of you on Facebook, if you can just like this video and share it, that way others will be able to see it later on as well, now or later on. Both these two examples of Moab and Midian. Hi, Simeon. Thank you for your message and your greeting. Thank you. Both these two stories that we just spoken about, Moab and Midian coming together, as well as the fire and the ice in the Makkah and the plague of Barad coming together, teach us how to unite and overcome our differences. So Brian Owen, thank you for your comment actually on WhatsApp. The political arena is famous for today's topic. Right. Not always, but often is where politicians are able, this is when you know if you can trust your politician or not. How do you know whether to trust your politician, your prime minister, your president, your leader? How do you know? And the answer is, see if they can work for the goal, the common goal, or are they working for themselves? No one wants a politician or a leader that's going to fight for themselves or fight for their side, so to speak. Yes, it's true. You know, you got to remain truthful to your values. At the same time, it's about the public. And I think your comment, Brian, about the political arena could be said regarding Israel and how different opposite parties in Israel have come together during this time to form an emergency government. And these are parties that were opposites. They didn't see eye to eye when they ran for election. The leaders as well as the parties. And yet, when it comes to a crisis of resolving Corona in Israel, suddenly Netanyahu and Gantz, from two extremes of the political sphere, can unite and connect and work side by side. Not so simple, and they have their problems, and you can follow the media from Israel and you'll see that there are problems along the way. But the concept is the concept of today. The concept is right. That when there's a crisis and we're all focused on resolving that crisis, let's put aside our differences and let's work together. There'll be times later on that the differences can shine. There'll be times later on that we can highlight those differences. But for now, we need to connect the two parties, connect the nation together. Hi, Helen Feinstein on Facebook. Thank you. Stephen Hurd, did Bilam prophesize about the Messianic age? Absolutely he did. Sure, that's part of his prophecy. Okay, so let's continue this. So we bring it now to the scenario or the phenomenon we spoke about at the beginning, and that was Adam and Chava. Adam and Chava, we know, are Ezer Kenegdo. She's a help for him, but opposite him. That's the way God wanted it. If husband and wife, man and woman, would be the same, in other words, not Kenegdo, not opposite each other, then there wouldn't be a need for it. What for? We don't need it. We're the same anyway. So if we're the same, let man live on his own. Why would Adam need Chava? Why does he need Eve? For this exact reason. He needed someone different to him. This is a fundamental principle. You need someone different to you to make you better. You need someone who thinks differently to you to make you better. We don't want just yay sayers or yes sayers, because yes sayers don't make you better. You need someone who challenges you. Yes, out of respect and sensitivity and understanding. But it's got to be someone who challenges you, because when they challenge us, we get stronger. So the connector is the spouse, Mars and Venus, that are opposite each other. But that doesn't mean that they can't live together and work together and procreate together. Sure we can. It's called Ezer Kenegdo. But how do we do it? How do we bring the two together? How do we bring Mars and Venus together? And this is something that I often speak about to our grooms and to our brides when they get married, is the famous Talmud, the piece of Talmud in Tractate Sota. I know that some of you have learned Tractate Sota before. The famous piece of Talmud talks about the Sota, the woman who is disloyal to her husband. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. And there it talks about the names of a man and a woman, the Hebrew names, where the Hebrew name for a man is Ish, and the Hebrew name for a woman is Isha. Ish and Isha sound very familiar, sound very similar to each other. And they're actually spelt in a very similar way to each other. Ish is spelled Aleph Yud Shin, and Isha is spelled Aleph Shin Hey. Very, very similar. What's the difference? Ish has a Yud in it, and Isha has a Hey in it. Hi, D from Cape Town. D, every time you log on to one of our programs, D, you make our program national. It goes beyond the borders of Johannesburg. It reaches Cape Town. If anybody here is from overseas, let us know you're online. That way we make it international. Israel, Australia, America's a bit early now. So let us know if you're online with us. Just comment in the comments and we'd love to welcome you here. Or if you have any questions, hi Linda and Jaime, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, you can post them as well. So we have the Ish in the man with the Yud, and we have the Isha with the Hey by the woman. And that spells Yud Hey, spells God's name. What's the rest of the lettering in a man or woman's names? It's Aish. Aleph Shin spells Aish, fire. Because fire, as we've discussed before in one of these forums, fire is good and it's bad. It depends. Fire can be good and fire can be bad. When fire has God in it, when passion and love has God in it, it's positive. When fire has no God in it and greater purpose, it's negative. And this is what the Talmud tells us. And the Yud and the Hey of Yud of man and Hey of a woman creates God's name, because that's the common goal that connects Mars and Venus. That's the common goal that brings together a husband and wife. How is it possible for a husband and wife who are coming from completely different backgrounds? They're growing up in different families and different homes and possibly different countries and maybe even different languages and different mentalities. And somehow the husband and wife are able to come together and connect and live together. How's that possible? And the answer is because they have a common goal. That's the key answer for Mars and Venus. They have a common goal. When there's a common goal, it connects you. That's why it's Ezer. Why is it Ezer Kenegdo? Why is it a big help? Because when you have someone who's opposite you, but shares the common goal with you, that's the novelty. In other words, to have a yes sayer to a common goal alone, it's of no help. To have a naysayer, someone who just says no the entire time, is destructive. What's the right combination? Someone who's different to you, can say no to you, can disagree with you, but shares your common goal. When he or she shares your common goal, that brings us together with the benefits of both worlds. The benefit on the one hand of being different and therefore complementing each other and challenging one another and growing together, and the benefit of sharing common goal, which unites us together. That's the Ezer Kenegdo. And we've spoken about this before. How often do boys and girls, guys and girls who are dating, how often do they discuss these issues? So often, when a guy and a girl meet, it's in a very light and loose environment and atmosphere. And the attraction is one that's based on often superficial. Do we really know our differences well? Do we really know why we are conegdo, why we are different? Do we really know how we can come together for one goal, for one purpose? Not really. I'm not saying that the shidduch system with orchestrated and organized dates is so soundproof and perfect, but it's important to have that mindset. What's the goal? If we don't share something in common, then we're not for each other. So in the more religious communities, we first want to find that out. Do they have the same goal? What's their goal? What's their purpose in life? What's their passion and enthusiasm? Because if you can figure that one out, that they're sharing a common goal, please God, the rest will fall into place. But if they don't know their common goals, or they differ with their common goals, just because I'm attracted to you physically, or we started chatting to each other, doesn't mean we can marry each other. Because if we don't have that united force that brings us together, it's not going to happen. If you have any comments on this topic of Mars and Venus and how they can live together, I'd love your input. I'd love you to share your comments in the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube, whichever one you prefer, and let's talk about this. And I must say that this goal that is created by a husband and wife, and if you haven't done this yet, and some of you are married a lot longer than me, but if a couple hasn't done this yet, they need to go through this process of understanding their goals and how and what connects them, what unites them. And you know what happens? At a time of conflict, at a time of disagreement, the goal comes back. Because let's unpack it. Let's see where we went wrong. Yes, we know we're different. We know you're from Venus and I'm from Mars. We get that. But surely that common goal was there to unite us and connect us. And why is that not happening right now? Let's assess. The same thing can be said regarding communities. What connects us as a community? We're not all the same in a community. We're not all the same. We don't all believe the same and talk the same and act the same. And that's okay. We're allowed to be different. It's encouraged. On the contrary, it's okay to be different. But there's a common goal that connects the community. And sometimes he has to give in, and sometimes she has to give in. It's a matter of compromise. We've all heard about what compromise means. It's a matter of compromise. Sometimes he has to give in, and sometimes she has to give in. Why? For the common goal. If there's no common goal, then why should I give in? And why should you give in? Let's just split up and live apart. Because what connects us? But if there's a common goal, like there was with Moab and Midian in this week's parasha, and like there was with the fire and ice in the story of the Barad plague that hit Egypt, if there's a common goal, then we know why we're compromising. We know why we're giving in. When it comes to a community, we know why not everybody can have what they want and when they want. We know that there needs to be a compromise along the way in order to enable the community to reach their goal. Stephen Herr writes on YouTube, they say that opposites attract, but normally don't last. Whereas if they're on the same page, it normally lasts. Good point. So we've sort of confused that whole statement, Stephen, because now we've said that opposite attract, but if there's a common goal and they're on the same page, then they can last. That's the question. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that husband and wife are different. Sometimes they share more in common or less in common, but that's the way it is. Men and women, Mars and Venus, they're different. But when they have a common goal, that common goal connects them. It's been wonderful having you all here online with us this morning on another session of learning, daily learning and lockdown inspiration. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Can they live together? Yes, they can, but we discussed how it's possible, how opposites can come together and work side by side, hand in hand. We learned it from a strange story of Moab and Midian in this week's parasha when they looked to curse the Jewish people. But there's a powerful message that's being shared there and hopefully can be implemented in our own relationships as we establish our goals and make sure that we aim towards the same target, using our differences and sometimes compromising on our differences. In the meantime, keep well, keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. We'll be back here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. I look forward to seeing you there.